And sometimes people don't recognize that.
And it's funny because I didn't realize that this was going on until afterwards. Like, I didn't realize how intense it was and how much it took a toll on my mental health, how it took a toll on my physical health. Like, I was just mirroring just to make sure that everything was cohesive and not disruptive. Right. And that comes from my childhood because I was the second child. I had to do what was expected of me. And so there wasn't a lot of room for like, okay, Shania, like, you get to speak now. And it's like, okay, like, I'll speak when somebody tells me I can speak. Right. So it was like, so when we got into fights, I'm like, can I speak now? And it's like, hold on, but I have like 10 other things I need to go through. And so when I would get the opportunity to speak, it was just an explosion. And I would get so irate and so angry. And I just have like really big reactions. And so every time he would assume that I was going to have a big reaction, even though when it was little, like when I was ready to deal with it, when I was going to have a smaller reaction, it was met with, well, you know, like, this isn't the time. Or I was never the one that was able to delegate the time. I had to wait until it was an explosion or until he wanted to talk about it.
So you came off as very dismissive.
Yeah.
In those situations.
Definitely. And like, especially like belittling. I got belittled a lot as a kid, as a teenager. I would say, stop belittling me. And it would be like, what are you talking about? And it's like, you're literally talking down to me as if like I'm a child. And there was an age gap as well. So there was, it was only like 3 years, but enough to the point.
He's older or he's younger?
He's older than me.
Got it.
So it was to the point where he had more relationships than me. So he thought that he had a better grasp on how to handle everything. And everything was new to me because he was my first long-term relationship.
Okay.
So he's like, you actually don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do that because you've never been in a relationship with someone. And I'm like, I've had relationships with people, like friendships. I have different dynamics in my life, and I can adjust that accordingly to a romantic relationship. And I'm trying to, but you won't allow me because you see me as someone who has no knowledge. So you're talking down to me as if I'm a child. So there was a lot of belittling on top of that, and a lot of just like not even wanting to hear me. And I'm not the person that will sit there and agree with you. Like, I'll tell you, okay, you can say what you want to say, but at the end of the day, like, you can keep talking to me till you're blue in the face, but I don't agree. And so, and it was always like, you're so intense, you're so passionate. And it's like, well, I'm just trying to get my point across just like you did. Like, I don't understand why I'm coming off as passionate now.
You know
and
what,
you're not.
You know what else is interesting about you making that point that I want to come back to you? When you say as passionate, but you also said, but you're dismissing me into the point where it gets explosive, right? It's so ironic. I was literally having this conversation with a client earlier today. But it's as a guy with his wife and his daughter. I was saying, because I've seen these examples before.
Of course.
Sometimes people who are not afforded the opportunity to talk about issues, they kind of develop this laundry list of things. So the one time you let me talk about it, I hit you with everything. What I was telling him earlier is that the reason why that's not particularly effective, number one, is automatically going to put somebody on defense because you're just rattling things off that I'm not prepared to actually discuss with you.
Right.
The manner in which we do it, obviously sometimes we're getting a little intense about it. And then more importantly, you got to prioritize one thing at a time. So one good thing that I heard you say is I was trying to address it when it was small. And I agree with that. If we want things to not escalate and get out of hand, we need to handle it when it's a smaller issue in a more timely fashion. Right. Maybe not in that moment because emotions are high. So we pause, take a little bit of time, maybe an hour or two, sometimes a little bit longer, and then actually discuss that issue so that it doesn't continue to fester. But if I sit there and I let 1, 2, 6, 10 issues over the course of weeks, months, even years, believe it or not, I've tied these conversations.
Yeah.
There should be no shock that the person's ears aren't open. They're not trying to understand. They're not trying to be a good listener and try to understand your perspective and why you felt like you couldn't discuss this issue. They just kind of shut stuff down. And so even when you said that out loud to me, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So then he would need to work on giving you space to be able to actually address those issues.
Right.
Then more than likely, you wouldn't explode. Now, if you still exploded, I would say it's probably a Shania issue.
No, definitely.
Right?
And there was a couple times. I'm not acting like I know how to do step-by-step like conversation because it's taken a long time to actually like have conversations with people and set boundaries. Like I'm just now starting to do that now as an adult and with my my relationships with my family. So it's just like it. If anything, this has better served me to like live through this. So like now I'm definitely more grateful, but there's a lot of like, there was a lot at the beginning of the breakup where I was like, it was just because like I wasn't bending, I wasn't too mending enough. Like I should have given more like leeway, but it's like I gave so much and I tried so hard that, and what's even more messed up, not messed up, I don't want to say it like that, but even more funny to me is that like he had the realization the 2 months before he broke up with me. Before then, he had no idea that he was feeling this way. I'd been working on it for like a year or two and like trying to fix it here and there to make it better because I chose to be with him, right? Like you guys were talking about, I chose to have you as my partner. But for him, it was like 2-3 months, like, actually, I don't choose you anymore because like this isn't what I want my reality to be anymore because I don't want to work on these things. And so it was a lot of like self-doubt for me of like I said, like me being insecure and saying like, oh, well, maybe I should have done this differently. Maybe I should have done that differently. And it's like, no, but those were my values. Like, that's what I held like as my standard. I shouldn't feel bad if he didn't want to reciprocate that for me.
100%.
So